I have literally watched as the ability to make a decent middle class-esque life completely disappeared from so many professions during my fucking like not even 10 years of working.
America's newest side hustle isn't your usual gig, and it tells a prickly story about the U.S. economy.
I'm a grumpy young lady, and there's a lot to be grumpy about, okay? One of my grumpy little friends sent me this grumpy little number, and I cannot stop thinking about it.
I started my professional career as a copywriter. That's what I did. And when I started, okay, I remember very, very well, I had some mentors who were in different kinds of copywriting. I had a mentor who all that she wrote was ads. That's all she did. She was an ad woman. I had a mentor who all he did was in his little company that he had, they wrote case studies for businesses. I had a mentor who was a technical writer. And those three people individually had their own kind of skill set, right? And because of the specialization of their skill set, and this is pre-generative AI, and all these individual skills allowed each of these individuals, these specialists, to make middle-class livings. And some of them were 25 at the time I was 21. Some of them were 40, you know, and no matter what though, the thing I aspired the most for was that it seemed like that they knew what the fuck was up. They knew how to be salespeople enough to get themselves clients. They knew how to do the work, and they were rewarded for it. In the short time I have been a professional, I have watched as each person I just spoke about has had their whole shit washed completely. And it's not just because of generative AI, it's also because of globalization and the increasing pool of talent that speaks English and is able to do jobs for much less money. I know that that's true as well. But it's also the expectations of the employers themselves, right? It is not just enough to be a case study writer for most people anymore, right? It's not just enough to be an ads writer, right? Because the compounding factors of globalization and also of generative AI mean that if you are going to make a middle class living in America as a writer, just as one example, I have many others, you must be able to do it all. It's crazy to me that every single person who is below a certain age knows somebody who this happened to. You know, we've all watched as the wages and the dignity of the work have collapsed and the expectations of work have increased dramatically.
I got my start freelancing as a writer. I did envision myself maybe perhaps becoming a technical writer down the line. It seemed like a stable path. I'm learning about SEO. I'm learning about backlinks, you know. And then one day a couple years ago, one of the blogs I was working for informed me that in fact they will be firing all writers and instead switching to one human editor who will essentially curate AI. I don't want to make this video all about AI because it's shoved entirely down our throats, but I think it would be remiss not to talk about it in the context of this unprecedented unemployment market. Okay. And I meant to say job market there, but I honestly feel like maybe that's more accurate because the amount of hoops that you have to jump through just to get an interview, just to get an entry-level job. Unemployment or underemployment is feeling like more or less of a norm and not by choice. Full disclosure, I'm currently employed. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. But this is important to me because it's affecting so many people I love, and I'm not naive enough to think that I won't be replaced or outsourced next. So much of the talking point centering around the acceleration of AI, especially within the workplace, tend to focus on how there's always been eras of adoption, of adaptation, where workers just have to learn how to meet the new demands of the new system. And that may be true. However, this is a system in which the jobs aren't just being replaced. The challenge isn't upskilling labor. The challenge is total extraction of value from the everyday person with an explicit intent and desire to hire less people overall. The bar is in hell, ladies and gentlemen, because if you are going to get hired, probably because you know someone who knows someone and you have a fairly affable personality, well, you're going to have to do multiple roles, all right? That's just the way it is, and it's probably going to be for less money. Free time? Psh, benefits? Gone. I think AI has created this expectation in the workforce that you should be able to do more without providing additional time, space, and compensation for you to do more. There is no craft. There is no slow learning in order to prioritize accuracy. So you might as well sell your body.
America's newest side hustle isn't your usual gig, and it tells a prickly story about the U.S. economy. People selling blood just to get by.
It was out of necessity.
Like Ian Pleasant, who started donating at this center outside Philadelphia after being hit by a car and breaking his leg.
It was a lifesaver. It even paid my rent.
A lifesaver for him and the patients on the other end.
People will come in and use this money to supplement their income. For a lot of people, it's their lifeline to afford that little thing that's extra.
A booming market worth more than $30 billion now, pumping through the veins of American households. Collections up about 30% in the last 3 years. There are now more plasma centers than Costco's across the nation. Middle-class workers struggling with rising costs and a slowing job market. Jill Chamberlain in Scottsdale, Arizona used to make $87,000 a year overseeing the finances for a local business until she was laid off in August 2024. Now she works more than 80 hours a week to barely cover her bills. Twice a week before work, she sells her plasma.
Everything that I get from here or the other overtime jobs is food. It's power, it's gas in my car, it's car insurance. One day it will fix my sunroof.
Chamberlain makes about $400 a month from her plasma, but she says it leaves her exhausted and frustrated.
I chickened out for the first 2 months. I went and then backed out and went and backed out, and it was just too scary.
You were afraid to do it?
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma attached to it, and I wanted to find other solutions before I went that far.
And don't get me wrong, I think donating plasma is a beautiful thing. I am a proud blood donor occasionally, but wow. And by no means do I want to shame the people who have to do this. Obviously, people are being put in a position where they're so strapped, where they feel like they have to figure out unique ways to make ends meet. But the amount of times I read donating plasma as a side hustle, I don't know, just something feels a little sacrilegious there. I've definitely talked about my fair share of unemployment, namely how abysmal the recruiting process seems to be today, or interviewing, if you're lucky enough to talk to a human. Okay, good luck. Good luck with that. Check out r/recruiting hell. That's always a fun one. And I can only see this sort of trend increasing, at least for the immediate future. I have a lot of friends who are currently unemployed or underemployed. And then the logical thing is, okay, well, just go. Why don't you knock on doors? Okay, why don't you give your resume in person? You know what happens to a lot of these people? Told to apply online, they don't take things in person, or the amount of labor has been so hollowed out that even those jobs are no longer something that you can just pick up in an afternoon. And even if you did, they probably wouldn't cover the bills because it can't be that easy, right? I will also say when I worked one of these entry-level jobs as a little barista, I quickly found out how hard it was to make just a base living and the practices around scheduling so that you don't get benefits or nearly enough hours to work, or scheduling is just so crazy so you cannot have a life outside of work. And this article caught my eye today. The brutal hunt for low paid work. It's like the Hunger Games, but for a job folding clothes. There are 30 interview candidates in the gray carpeted room competing to build food towers. Already they had to solve anagrams, complete quizzes, and rank the importance of various kitchen items just to be shortlisted for this 2-hour interview round. Zara had to write an online application consisting of 10 paragraphs about her work experience. As she builds her spaghetti and marshmallow tower, she thinks, what am I actually doing here? Okay, it's revealed this task. I will never understand. I don't think anybody should ever be handed uncooked pasta and marshmallows, but especially not applying to be a member of Wingstop. You also get the employers that are way too happy to hire someone overseas for very, very cheap, questionably cheap labor, or the types of employers who think that all of their issues can be solved with ChatGPT. And sorry to bring it back there. I know I like to talk about the little robots, but we can't even count on those being real, right? These companies that we're depending on in the stock market and otherwise have not turned a profit. And we're taking that expectation and hoping it will bring us more money. It feels like everything is propped up right now by fanatical belief that the value of AI is valuable because we said it's valuable, and if we don't say it's valuable, then there will be no value. At the same time, we've got prediction markets, and as a result, I think we have lottery solutions for a lottery economy. I think people are more likely to play into prediction markets, to use buy now, pay later services, if you can even call them that, because they need something radical to change, right? And nothing is happening. So hopefully something will swoop in and save them. Hopefully I will go viral, or I will hit it big and get money that way. We have gotten to the point where we are banking on that slim manufactured possibility rather than demanding a secure middle class lifestyle across the board. Why is that too much to ask for these people who have so much money they could not spend it all if they tried? What I'm saying isn't new, but it is infuriating, and I will continue to be grumpy until I'm just gonna continue to be grumpy. That's it. But I guess to wrap it up, it kind of struck me like, even if you can get a job, and getting a job is so hard right now, even if you get a job, you have to be exceptional. And what I mean by that is you have some crazy connection to someone who's going to employ you, or you're willing to bend at the knee, bend backwards, do multiple roles, be on the clock when you shouldn't have to be on the clock. It's this complete annihilation of the traditional career evaporating right before our eyes. And I find it all to be pretty offensive, all right? Because we're losing our humanity, and it's a gross display of not caring about one's fellow man, right? They're not even pretending to look out for people anymore. Yeah. That's what I have to say. Be gentle on yourself. And talk soon. Tell me about how you feel.